The tray of champagne glasses rattled in my hands, the crystal clinking together like tiny warning bells. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, trying to make myself as small as possible in my ill-fitting white waiter's uniform. The air smelled of expensive perfume and roasted duck, a scent that always made my stomach turn, because it meant my stepfather, Alistair, was hosting another one of his property tycoon galas. My job was simple: keep the glasses full and stay invisible. That was the rule. I was the dirt under the rug in this shining glass mansion on the Australian coast. "Excuse me, young man," a deep voice said. I froze. A tall man in a sharp tuxedo was staring at me. I recognized him immediately. He was an American investor, one of the most important people in the room. He tilted his head, looking from me to the woman standing by the grand piano. "You have the exact same eyes as the hostess," the American said, pointing his glass toward my mother, Alina. "Are you two related? A nephew, perhaps?" My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked across the room. My mother looked radiant in a silver gown that cost more than my late father made in a year. She caught my eye. For a second, just a split second, I saw panic. Then her face went cold. It was a look I knew well. It was the look that said I didn't belong in her perfect new life. She laughed, a light, airy sound that felt like ice. "Oh, heavens, no," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd. "He's just part of the catering staff Alistair hired. Just a local boy needing work." The words hit me harder than a physical punch. My own mother. She didn't just ignore me, she erased me. Alistair stepped in then, his hand gripping my shoulder. His fingers dug into my muscle, bruising me. "Run along, boy," he hissed, smiling fake warmth to the American. "The guests are thirsty." I turned and walked toward the kitchen, my vision blurry with hot tears. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the tray. But I didn't. Instead, I swallowed the pain, just like I always did. If you've ever felt like you didn't matter to the people who were supposed to love you, then you know exactly how I felt. And if you want to see how I made them regret every single second of this, make sure to subscribe and like this video, because this story is just getting started. I didn't go to the kitchen. I walked straight out the back door, down the pebble path, and into the detached garage. This was my home. When Alistair moved us into his mansion 3 years ago, he said there wasn't enough room in the 8-bedroom house for me. Brody, his son, and my stepbrother needed a gaming room, a gym, and a guest room for his friends. So I got the garage. It smelled like oil and old concrete, but it was mine. Over the years, I had glued egg cartons and old mattress foam to the walls to soundproof it. Not to keep the noise out, but to keep my noise in. Alistair hated my music. He called it depressing racket. I threw my waiter's jacket into the corner and picked up my guitar. It was an old acoustic model my real dad gave me before he passed away. The wood was scratched and the G string was a little loose, but it had a soul. I sat on my cot and started to play. I didn't think about the chords, I just let the anger flow from my fingers. I thought about the way my mom looked at the American investor. I thought about Alistair's grip on my shoulder. Words started pouring out of me. She wears silver to hide the gray. He buys the silence so I stay away. I'm the ghost in the garden, the stain on the floor. But I won't be the secret you keep anymore. I hit record on my phone. I didn't have a fancy microphone or a studio. I just had the raw acoustics of a concrete garage and a heart that was breaking in real time. I titled the song Invisible Ink. I logged into a US-based streaming site. I didn't use my real name, Jack. If Alistair found out, he'd smash my guitar. Instead, I created a profile with the black silhouette as the picture. I named the artist The Oz Phantom. I hit upload. I sat there for a moment, watching the progress bar. 10%, 50%, 100%. Upload complete. I put the phone down, curled up on the lumpy mattress, and closed my eyes. I wish I could just disappear for real. I had no idea that while I slept, my entire life was about to catch fire. Bam, bam, bam! The metal roller door of the garage shook violently. I jolted awake, my heart racing. Sunlight was streaming through the cracks. "Wake up, you lazy waste of space!" Alistair's voice boomed from outside. "The pool has leaves in it. If it's not clean in 10 minutes, you're not eating today." I rubbed my eyes, groaning. My back ached from the thin mattress. It was 6 a.m. The party must have ended late, but the staff didn't get to sleep in. I reached for my phone to check the time, and my screen was frozen. It wouldn't unlock. Notifications were piled up so high the interface was lagging. I frowned. Usually, the only texts I got were from my service provider telling me my data was low. Finally, the screen unlocked. I opened the app where I uploaded the song. My jaw dropped. I blinked, sure I was still dreaming. Views 2,405,912. I gasped, dropping the phone on the blanket. I picked it up again, my hands shaking. The comments were scrolling so fast I couldn't read them. "Bro, who is this? This hurts my soul." The voice, it sounds like he's bleeding. "I'm crying in my car right now. This is real music." "Find this guy. Internet, do your thing. Find the Oz Phantom." It wasn't just views. Famous influencers in Los Angeles were duetting the video. A huge pop star had tweeted the link with a broken heart emoji. "Jack, the pool." Alistair screamed again, kicking the door. "I'm coming," I yelled back, my voice cracking. I stared at the phone. I was famous, or at least the Oz Phantom was famous. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this was my ticket out. Maybe I could get a contract, make some money, and move out. I could buy my own place. I could be free. But I should have known better. In this house, nothing belonged to me, not even my own voice. I was skimming leaves out of the infinity pool, the morning sun hot on my neck, when the sliding glass door to the mansion burst open. Brody came running out. He was wearing silk pajamas and holding his latest iPhone. Brody was 23, a year older than me, but he acted like a teenager. He had spent the last 3 years trying to become a famous DJ. Alistair bought him expensive turntables, hired producers, and even paid clubs to let him play. But Brody had no rhythm. "Dad, come here!" Brody was screaming, his face flush red. I kept my head down, dragging the net through the water. I hoped he wouldn't notice me. Brody stopped right at the edge of the pool. He looked at his phone, then at me. He played the audio. My voice, singing Invisible Ink, rang out over the patio. "You wrote this?" Brody asked. His voice wasn't admiring. It was sharp. I stopped cleaning. There was no point in lying. He had heard me playing guitar 1,000 times. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I wrote it last night." Brody stared at me. Then a slow, ugly smile spread across his face. It was the kind of smile a shark gives before it bites. "Dad!" he yelled again, turning back to the house. "You need to see this. I found it! I found the golden ticket!" Alistair walked out, holding a cup of coffee. He looked annoyed. "What is it, Brody? Stop shouting." "Listen to this," Brody said. He played the song again. "It's viral, Dad. 2 million views. People in America are going crazy for it. Labels are already emailing the account asking to sign the artist." Alistair listened. He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. He didn't look proud. He looked calculating. He looked at me like I was a piece of property he had just realized was valuable. You wrote this trash? Alistair asked me. It's not trash, I said, standing up a little straighter. People like it. People like the mystery, Alistair corrected. He looked at Brody. You said labels are calling? Huge ones, Brody said, practically bouncing. Capital, Sony, everyone. Alistair took a sip of his coffee. Good. Get dressed, Jack. We have a family meeting. I'm not signing anything over to you, I said, sensing the danger immediately. Alistair laughed. It was a dry, dark sound. Oh, Jack, you don't have a choice. The dining room table was made of imported marble. It was cold under my elbows. Elena, my mother, sat at the end of the table. She was looking out the window at the ocean, refusing to look at me. Alistair threw a stack of papers in front of me. What is this? I asked. A transfer of copyright. You are going to sign the rights of Invisible Ink and the persona, the Oz Phantom, over to Brody. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Are you insane? No, that's my song. That's my voice. Sit down, Alistair commanded. His voice wasn't loud, but it was dangerous. Mom, I looked at her. Mom, tell him. Tell him you can't do this. Elena took a sip of her tea. Her hand was trembling slightly, but her voice was steady. Jack, please, don't be difficult. Brody has been working so hard for a break. You know he's better suited for the spotlight. You're shy. You don't handle pressure well. I'm not shy. You just hide me, I yelled. We are a family, Alistair said. And in this family, we help each other. Brody is going to be the face. You will be the songwriter. You will stay in the background where you belong. We'll say Brody wrote it. We'll say Brody is the singer. You will teach him how to lip sync it properly. I won't do it, I said, crossing my arms. I'll go to the police. I'll tell the internet the truth. Alistair smiled. He reached into a manila folder and pulled out another document. It was a photo of a small, run-down building near the beach. It was a mechanic shop with the faded sign, Miller's Auto Repair. My breath hitched. That was my dad's shop. He left it to me in his will, but I couldn't access it until I paid off the debts he left behind. I had been saving every penny I made, working odd jobs to save it. I know you're saving up for this dusty old shack, but you weren't fast enough. The bank put the debt up for sale yesterday. I bought it this morning. He held up the deed. If you sign the song to Brody, I keep the shop open. I'll even let you keep working toward paying it off. But if you walk out that door, or if you refuse to sign, I bulldoze it. He leaned forward. I'll turn your father's legacy into a parking lot for my guests. By Monday. The room went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I looked at the photo of the shop. I grew up there. I learned to play guitar sitting on the workbench when my dad fixed transmissions. It was the only thing I had left of him. The only place in the world that felt like it actually belonged to me. You can't, I whispered. I can, and I will. It's prime real estate, Jack. A parking lot would actually increase my property value. I looked at my mother again. She was staring at her fingernails. Mom? I asked, my voice barely a squeak. You'd let him destroy Dad's shop? Elena finally looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but her face was hard. You have to be practical, Jack. It's just a building, and Alistair provides for us. Just sign the paper. Don't be selfish. Selfish. The word rang in my ears. I was the one sleeping in a garage. I was the one serving champagne to people who pretended I didn't exist. And I was the one selfish. I felt something inside me break. It wasn't a loud break. It was a quiet snap, like a twig under a heavy boot. I picked up the pen. My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold it. I looked at Alistair. He looked triumphant. I looked at Brody. He looked excited, like a kid waiting for dessert. I hated them. I hated them with a fire that burned hot in my chest. But I loved my dad more. I lowered the pen to the paper. Fine, I said. I'll do it. I signed my name. A single tear fell from my cheek and landed on the ink, smudging it slightly. Alistair snatched the paper away before the ink could dry. Smart boy, he said. Now, finish your breakfast quickly. We're filming the music video at noon. The next 3 days were a blur of humiliation. Alistair hired a professional camera crew. They set up lights in the main living room, pushing the expensive furniture aside. Brody was dressed in a leather jacket and ripped jeans, an outfit that cost $2,000 to look like it cost $10. They played my track over the speakers. Okay, Brody, action, the director yelled. Brody started moving his mouth, trying to match my vocals. It was pathetic. He was bobbing his head like he was at a rave, but the song was a slow, acoustic ballad about loneliness. Cut! I yelled from the corner. Alistair glared at me. What is it? He's smiling, I said, walking over to Brody. Brody, listen to the lyrics. I'm the ghost in the garden. You can't smile. You have to look like you're in pain. Brody rolled his eyes. Whatever, Jack, you're killing my vibe. I'm giving it star power. It doesn't need star power, I snapped. It needs soul, something you wouldn't understand. Watch your tone, Alistair warned. I took a deep breath. Do it again. Look at the camera. Don't move your head so much. Just think about something sad. Think about if you lost your credit card. Brody growled, but he listened. They did 20 takes. By the end, they had something that looked passably real, mostly because the lighting was moody and hid Brody's eyes. When the video went up on the Oz Phantom channel, replacing my black silhouette with Brody's face, my stomach churned. The comments flooded in. He's so handsome. I knew he would look like this, a tortured artist. Brody, I love you. They were falling for it. The whole world was falling for the lie. And I had to stand there and watch my stepbrother steal my soul one view at a time. 2 days later, the video had 10 million views. That's when the call came. Silas Vance. He was a legend in the music industry. He had discovered some of the biggest pop stars in America. When Alistair said Silas wanted a Zoom meeting, the whole house went into panic mode. They set up a laptop in Alistair's study with the ocean view in the background. Brody sat in the leather chair. I was positioned behind the laptop, out of sight, holding a stack of cue cards. The screen flickered, and there he was, Silas Vance. He looked relaxed, wearing a t-shirt and a multi-million-dollar LA office. Brody, Silas said, good to meet you. The song is incredible. It's haunting. Thanks, man, Brody said, trying to sound cool. It's just, my art. Silas leaned in. I'm curious about the second verse. She wears
silver to hide the gray. Is that about your mother? Brody froze. He looked at the camera, panic in his eyes. He didn't know what the lyrics meant. He barely listened to them. I quickly scribbled on the card, metaphor for growing up too fast. Brody squinted at my handwriting. Yeah, it's a meadow for growing fast? I slapped my forehead. Silas raised an eyebrow. A meadow? I frantically wrote, metaphor, symbolism. Metaphor, Brody corrected quickly. It's a metaphor about losing innocence, you know? Silas studied Brody for a long, uncomfortable moment. Right. Listen, kid. The look is great, the voice is great, but I need to know this isn't a one-hit wonder. I want an EP. 5 songs, 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Brody squeaked. Can you do it? Or do I call the next viral kid? Silas asked. Alistair stepped into the frame, putting a hand on Brody's shoulder. He can do it, Mr. Vance. He's a machine. He's already working on it. Good, Silas said. Send me the demos. If they're good, I'll fly you to LA. The screen went black. Alistair turned to me. The fake smile vanished. You heard the man, Alistair said. Get to the garage. You have work to do. My garage became my prison. Alistair installed a heavy padlock on the outside of the door. Just so we don't have any interruptions, he said. They brought me meals, sandwiches mostly, and slid them through the door. I worked 18 hours a day. I had no choice. Every time I slowed down, Alistair would send me a text, a picture of a bulldozer parked right in front of Miller's Auto Repair. I wrote until my fingers bled. I wrote until my throat was raw from recording the reference tracks for Brody to mimic. But as I wrote, something changed. I stopped trying to write pop hits. I started writing my anger. I wrote a song called Puppet on a String. I wrote one called The Thief in the Night. They were angry songs, dark songs, but they were catchy. Meanwhile, Brody was living the life. I could hear him from the garage. He was having parties by the pool. I heard champagne corks popping. I heard girls laughing. I heard him bragging. Yeah, the creative process is exhausting. I just lock myself away and bleed onto the page, you know? I gripped my guitar neck so hard, the wood creaked. Bleed onto the page? He wouldn't know bleeding if it hit him in the face. I looked at the sound waves of the bass track I was working on, and then I had an idea. A dangerous idea. I finished the AP in 12 days. I was exhausted. My eyes were red, my skin pale from lack of sunlight. When Alistair finally unlocked the door, I stumbled out into the fresh air. I felt like a zombie. I found my mother in the garden, pruning roses. She looked perfect, as always, not a hair out of place. Mom, I rasped. She turned. She saw how thin I looked. For a second, her face softened. Jack, you look tired. Have you been eating? I've been a prisoner, Mom, for 12 days. Don't be dramatic, she said, turning back to the roses. You're helping the family. Alistair is very proud of the work you're doing. He's proud of the money. I stepped closer. Mom, listen to me. When this album comes out, Brody's going to be famous. Really famous. He won't need me anymore. Can't you ask Alistair to let me go? Just let me have the shop and leave. Elena sighed. She put down the shears. Jack, honey, we need you for the album tour and the second album. You're the engine. The car doesn't run without the engine. I'm not an engine. I'm your son, I yelled. She flinched. Lower your voice, the neighbors. I don't care about the neighbors. Well, I do. I care about this house. I care about this life. Do you know what it was like before Alistair? Clipping coupons, worrying about rent. I'm not going back to that, and neither are you. She looked at me cold and hard, and she said, You will do what needs to be done. If you leave,
Alistair will destroy that shop, and I won't stop him. I won't risk my security for your pride. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized the mother I remembered, the one who used to sing me lullabies, was gone. She had sold herself to Alistair years ago. Now she was selling me. Okay, I said softly. I understand. And I did. I understood that if I wanted freedom, I couldn't ask for it. I had to take it. I went back to the garage. I told Alistair I needed 1 more hour to mix the final levels. Make it quick, he said. I opened the project file for the lead song, The Thief. I navigated to the bass track, the low thumping sound that drives the song. I opened a plugin called a spectral analyzer. It allows you to see sound. Usually sound looks like squiggly lines, but if you manipulate the frequencies just right, you can draw pictures with sound. It's an old trick. Aphex Twin did it, 9 Inch Nails did it. I took the synthesizer and carefully adjusted the harmonic levels. I drew lines, I erased noise. It took 40 minutes of precision work. When I was done, if you listened to the song, it just sounded like a cool, distorted bass wobbling, wub wub wub. But if you ran that audio file through a spectral analyzer, which every sound engineer in the world does, the visual graph wouldn't show squiggly lines. It clearly spelled out words, block letters made of sound, written by Jack. I embedded it into every single song on the EP. I exported the files. I saved them to the hard drive. All done, I whispered. I handed the drives to Alistair. He grinned. See? Was that hard to do? I smiled back. It was the first real smile I had in weeks. No, Alistair, it was actually kind of fun.
The EP, titled Phantom Pain, dropped on a Friday. By Saturday, it was the #1 album on iTunes in America, the UK, and Australia. It was a sensation. Critics called Brody a prodigy. They called the songwriting the voice of a generation. Brody was walking around the house like he was a god. He wore sunglasses indoors. He started demanding special brands of sparkling water. Then the email came. Silas Vance wanted the Oz Phantom to perform live, not just anywhere, at the Grammy pre-party in Los Angeles. It was the most exclusive event of the year. Every celebrity, producer, and executive would be there. "We're going to Hollywood," Brody yelled, high-fiving Alistair. Alistair turned to me. "Pack your bags, Jack." "I'm coming?" I asked. "Of course," Alistair said. "Brody doesn't know how to set up the backing tracks. He doesn't know how to do a sound check. You're going as his personal assistant." "Personal assistant," I repeated. "And remember," Alistair said, pointing a finger at my chest, "you don't speak unless spoken to. You carry the bags, you set up the gear, and you stay in the shadows. If you try anything at all, I will text the demolition crew before you can blink." "I know," I said. "I'll be a ghost." "Good," Alistair said. "Now go iron Brody's shirts." The flight to LA was long. They sat in first class, drinking champagne and sleeping in lie-flat beds. I sat in economy, row 54, next to the toilets. When we landed at LAX, it was chaos. Paparazzi were waiting at the gate. As soon as Brody stepped out, camera flashes exploded like lightning. "Brody, Brody, over here! The Phantom, look this way!" Brody soaked it up, waving and blowing kisses. Alistair was right next to him, beaming like the proud father he pretended to be. Elena was posing, making sure her diamond necklace caught the light. I was behind them, struggling with the luggage cart stacked with 6 suitcases and 2 guitar cases. "Move it," a photographer yelled at me. "Get out of the shot, kid." Brody stopped to sign an autograph. I tried to maneuver the heavy cart around him, but the wheel got stuck. The cart tipped. A heavy suitcase slid off and hit Brody's ankle. Ow! Brody screamed. He spun around and kicked the suitcase. You idiot! Watch what you're doing! The cameras went wild. Click, click, click. I scrambled to pick up the bag. Sorry, I'm sorry. Useless, Brody muttered, loud enough for the press to hear. Good help is so hard to find. By the time we got to the hotel, the video was online on TMZ. The headline read, "The Oz Phantom attacks clumsy assistant." But the comments were different. People noticed things. Why is the star kicking his staff? The assistant looks so sad, and he looks just like the mom. The assistant has a guitar case on his back. Does he play too? I sat in my tiny hotel room while they had suites and read the comments. The world was watching. They just didn't know what they were seeing yet. The next day was sound check at the Viper Room, the legendary club where the party was happening. The venue was empty except for the tech crew. The head sound engineer was a woman named Riley. She had purple hair, combat boots, and eyes that looked like they didn't miss a thing. Brody was on stage, holding the guitar. He looked awkward holding it. Okay, give me a level on the guitar, Riley said from the sound booth. Brody looked at the guitar. He strummed it, but it sounded awful. It was completely out of tune from the flight. It sounds weird, Brody said. It's out of tune, Riley said flatly. Tune it. Brody froze. He didn't know how to tune a guitar. He didn't even know the names of the strings. Jack, Brody yelled into the microphone, fix this thing. I ran onto the stage. I took the guitar from him. I didn't need a tuner. I had perfect pitch. I quickly twisted the pegs. E-A-D-G-B-E. Then, without thinking, I played a quick riff. A complex blues run I used to warm up. My fingers flew over the fretboard. It was loud, clean, and perfect. I handed the guitar back to Brody. It's fixed. I turned to leave the stage. I looked up at the sound booth. Riley was standing up. She wasn't looking at Brody. She was staring right at me. She didn't say anything. She just tapped her chin. Her eyes narrowed. That night, I was walking down the hallway to get ice for Brody's protein shake. A door opened. It was Riley. She pulled me into her room before I could say a word. What? What are you doing? I stammered. The room was dark, lit only by her laptop screen. On the screen was a spectral analyzer. I was mixing the tracks for tonight, checking the bass frequencies for the subwoofer system. She pointed at the screen. There, glowing in neon green against the black background, were the jagged lines I had drawn. Written by Jack. Riley turned to me. Who is Jack? My mouth dried. I am. I knew it. She crossed her arms. The kid on stage can't tune a guitar. You shredded a blues scale in 3 seconds, and you look like you're carrying the weight of the world. You can't tell anyone, I begged. Please. My stepdad, he has leverage. He'll destroy my dad's shop. Riley looked at the screen, then at me. So you're just going to let him go out there and lip sync to your voice in front of the biggest names in the industry? I have to, I said. I signed a contract. Riley smirked. Contracts are for legal things. Fraud isn't legal. What do you mean? I mean, Riley said, her eyes gleaming with mischief, I'm the sound engineer. I control what the audience hears. And tonight, I think we should have some technical difficulties. She laid out a plan. It was terrifying. It was reckless. I'm in, I said. The party started at 8 p.m. The club was packed. I saw faces I recognized from magazines. There was Silas Vance, laughing with a movie star. Alistair was in his element. He was shaking hands, introducing Brody to everyone. Yes, he's a genius, runs in the family, you know. I was standing by the side of the stage, next to the laptop rig that played the backing tracks. My job was to hit spacebar when Brody gave the signal.
Alistair walked up to me. He grabbed my arm, hard. "This is it," he whispered. "Don't mess this up. If the audio skips, if the volume is wrong, I make the call. The bulldozer is already parked down the street from the shop. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. "Good boy." He patted my cheek. It was patronizing and cruel. Brody ran onto the stage. The crowd cheered. He grabbed the microphone. "What's up, LA? Are you ready to hear the real deal?" The crowd roared. Brody looked at me and nodded. That was the cue. I looked up at the sound booth. There was Riley. She gave me a tiny thumbs up. I put my finger on the spacebar. And I didn't press it. If I didn't, Alistair would know I sabotaged it. I pressed the spacebar. The music started. The intro to The Thief filled the room. Heavy drums, moody synths. Brody started bouncing, getting ready for the first verse. But just as he opened his mouth to sing, Elena appeared next to me in the wings. "Jack," she hissed. I took one headphone off. "Mom, now?" She shoved a piece of paper at me. "Alistair forgot this. It's a non-disclosure agreement. The lawyer said we need it signed before the performance finishes, just in case you get drunk and talk to anyone." "You're doing this now?" I asked incredulously. "While he's on stage?" "Sign it," she demanded, "or the deal is off." I looked at the paper. It said I would never claim ownership of the songs. It said I would never speak about the arrangement. I looked at Brody on stage. He was lip-syncing perfectly. The crowd was loving it. I took the pen. I looked at my mother. "You really picked him over me, didn't you?" She said, "I picked survival." I signed the paper, but I didn't sign Jack Miller. I signed The Oz of Phantom. I handed it back. She didn't even look at the signature. She folded it and walked away. Okay, now I was angry. Now I was ready. I typed a quick command into the chat window that connected to Riley's booth. Now. Riley killed the vocal track. Instantly. The drums kept going, the bass kept thumping, but the voice, my voice, vanished. Brody didn't notice at first. He had his eyes closed, pretending to be emotional, mouthing the words, "I'm the thief in the night, stealing back my time." But no sound was coming out. The crowd went quiet. They could hear the drums, but they could see Brody's mouth moving with no vocals. Someone in the front row laughed. Brody opened his eyes. He realized something was wrong. He tapped the microphone. Thump, thump. The mic was on. He just wasn't singing. "Sing!" someone yelled. Brody panicked. He looked at me. His eyes were wide with terror. He shouted, "Track! The track cut out!" The music stopped completely. Riley had cut the instrumentals too. Now it was dead silence. Just the hum of the amps and the murmurs of 300 confused industry experts. Alastair stood up in the VIP section. His face was purple. "Jack, fix it! Fix the computer!" Brody stood there, sweating. Technical difficulties, guys. One sec." I stepped away from the laptop. "Jack!" Alastair screamed. "The shop! I'm calling them right now!" He pulled out his phone. I didn't care. Let him call. Let him bulldoze the shop. He could destroy the building, but he couldn't destroy the truth. Not anymore. I grabbed the spare acoustic guitar that was sitting on the rack next to me. I grabbed a vocal mic from the stand. I didn't look at Alastair. I walked out of the shadows. I walked right onto the center of the stage. Brody looked at me. He said, "What are you doing? Get back!" I pushed past him. I stood in the center spotlight. It was blindingly bright. I couldn't see the audience, just a sea of darkness. My heart was hammering so hard, I thought it would explode. This was it, the point of no return. I strummed the guitar, one hard, resonant chord. It rang out through the massive club speakers. It sounded real. It sounded raw. I leaned into the mic. "This song," I said, my voice shaking slightly, then finding its strength, "is called Invisible Ink, and I wrote it about the people standing right over there." I pointed to the VIP section. Then I closed my eyes and I sang. She wears silver to hide the gray. The sound of my live voice hit the room like a shockwave. It wasn't processed. It wasn't auto-tuned. It was imperfect, gritty, and full of a lifetime of being told to be quiet. I heard the audience gasp. They recognized the voice instantly. It was the voice from the record. I opened my eyes. I saw Silas Vance standing up, his mouth open. I saw Alastair frozen, phone in hand, looking like he had been struck by lightning. I looked at Brody. He was shrinking. He literally looked smaller, hunched over, backing away from me. I didn't stop. I played the whole song. I changed the ending, improvising on the spot. You can steal the face, you can steal the name, but you can't steal the fire if you can't handle the flame. I hit the final chord. It faded into silence. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. It was the loudest silence I had ever heard. Then the room erupted. It wasn't polite applause, it was screaming. People were standing on tables. It was the kind of reaction you dream about. Riley flashed the stage lights. I stood there, breathing heavy, sweat dripping down my face. I looked at the camera that was live streaming the event. My name is Jack Miller, and I'm done hiding. The next 10 minutes were madness. Security guards rushed the stage, but not for me. They were escorting Brody off, who was crying. Alastair tried to push through the crowd to get to me. "He's a liar," Alastair was screaming. "He's mentally unstable. That's my son's song." But Silas Vance stepped in front of Alastair. Silas was a big guy, and he didn't look happy. "Sit down," Silas said to Alastair, "or I'll have you thrown out." Silas climbed onto the stage. He walked up to me. I thought he was going to be mad that I ruined his show. Instead, he pulled me into a hug. "Kid, that was the most rock and roll thing I have ever seen." He grabbed the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, the real Oz Phantom." The crowd cheered again. I looked for my mother. I saw her near the exit. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Alastair, who was being held back by security. She looked terrified. She realized the boat she had tied herself to was sinking, and she had just thrown the life raft, me, overboard. I spent that night in Silas Vance's mansion. He said it wasn't safe for me to go back to the hotel with Alastair. I sat in his kitchen, eating a burger, while Silas paced back and forth on the phone with his legal team. Yes, fraud, massive fraud. They signed contracts claiming the brother was the writer. It's international wire fraud. The kid has proof. Riley came over with her laptop. "Look at this." She showed me Twitter. Hashtag Justice for Jack was the #1 trend in the world. Someone had posted the screenshot of the spectral analyzer showing "written by Jack." Another person had posted the video of the luggage cart incident analyzing the way Alastair looked at me. The internet detectives had found everything. They found my dad's old shop. They found old high school yearbooks proving Brody's failed music class. "You're a hero, Jack," Riley said. "I don't feel like a hero," I said, wiping ketchup off my face. "I just feel tired." "Get some sleep," Silas said, hanging up the phone. "Tomorrow, we go to war." The war didn't last long. When you commit fraud against a multi-million-dollar American corporation, they don't play nice. Silas's lawyers froze Alastair's assets the next morning. They filed a lawsuit for copyright infringement, fraud, and emotional distress. Because Alastair had signed the contract stating Brody was the sole creator, he had lied on a federal document. He was looking at prison time. Brody cracked immediately. He went on Instagram Live, crying, blaming his dad. "He made me do it. I didn't want to." The internet didn't buy it. He was canceled within hours. Elena tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. "Jack, please, Alastair is ruining us. We're going to lose the house. Call me. We're family." I deleted the voicemail. They lost everything. The lawsuit demanded all profits from the song plus punitive damages. Alastair had to liquidate his assets to settle out of court and avoid jail. He had to sell his company. He had to sell the cars. And, most satisfyingly, he had to sell the mansion. 6 months later, I finished my first world tour. It was exhausted but amazing. I played stadiums, I played the guitar my dad gave me. I flew back to Australia for a week of rest. I rented a car and drove down the coast. The ocean air smelled sweet. I pulled up to Miller's Auto Repair. It wasn't a dusty shock anymore. I had used my first royalty check to renovate it. It was freshly painted, there was a new sign, I hired my dad's old friend Stan to run it. It was a thriving business again. But I had one more stop to make. I drove up the hill to the glass mansion. There was a moving truck in the driveway. Alastair and Eleanor were carrying boxes. They looked old. Alastair's hair was gray, he couldn't afford the dye anymore. Eleanor was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, looking tired and worn down. They stopped when they saw my car. It was a nice car. I rolled down the window. Alastair glared at me. "You happy? You ruined us." "I just took back what was mine," I said calmly. Eleanor stepped forward. "Jack, where are you staying? Maybe we could get dinner?" She still didn't get it. She thought she could charm her way back in. "I'm staying here," I said.
What? Alistair asked. I held up a set of keys. The bank put the house up for auction to pay your debts. I bought it. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "I'm not moving in," I said. "Too many bad memories. But I hired a property manager. I'm turning it into a music school for kids who can't afford lessons, kids who have parents who don't believe in them." Alistair looked like he was going to vomit. "You have until noon to get off the property," I said. "The contractors are coming to tear down the garage. I'm building a real studio there." I put the car in reverse. "Goodbye, Alistair. Goodbye, Mom." I didn't wait for them to answer. I backed out of the driveway and turned toward the ocean. I turned the radio on. My song was playing. I sang along, loud and off-key, just for myself. Sometimes you have to lose your voice to find out how loud you can really scream. And sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting people. It's just succeeding without them. If this story inspired you to stand up for yourself, or if you just loved seeing justice served, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I've got a lot more stories to tell, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Thanks for watching.